Hello, you guys. I am hopping on with a tutorial today. Okay, so I've had several people reach out and ask me for a tutorial on how I created this cute little journal from the kLJUYP mini journaling notebook die set. And several of you said that you ordered the die and that you just wanted a little tutorial on how to put it together. So that is what I'm going to do today. So I will link this die in the description box below. It was sent to me for free as part of the design team. And yeah, we're going to get going. Okay. So this is the little journal that I made. Super cute. Love how this turned out. And I used this die set to create it. So let me set this over to over there. Okay. Now the first thing you want to do is you're going to take this die set. Now this is the one without the stitching. So it's the largest one. And you're going to cut out your base paper in this. So whatever paper you're going to use kind of as the background or as the bones of the journal, that's what you're going to cut out with this one. So for me, I used just thin white cardstock. So nothing spectacular. I bought this at Walmart. It's actually this one right here. It's the Pin and Gear, and it is 150 sheets. 8.5 by 11, and it looks like this. It's 100. It says 110 pound weight. This is not 110 pound cardstock, I can assure you. Okay, this is more like 65 pound maybe. Okay. So the reason I use that instead of my really thick, nice cardstock is it folds better. Okay, it's going to bend better. When you create your journal, it's going to get chunky, right? And if you have like really stiff cardstock, then your book is going to look more like this. It's not going to want to bend at all or fold at all. So if you use a little bit thinner paper, you'll be good to go. Also, you're going to be layering pattern paper on top of it. So it's going to be plenty sturdy by the time you get done. All right, so I cut out 4 of these, okay? And then I folded them in half. So 4, that's what I did for my book. You can make however many pages you want, but that's kind of where I started. Okay, so there's that. Then I used this die. This is the smaller one, and this one has the stitching on the outside, the faux stitching. And I cut out, I think, 8 of these in different patterns. Okay, now why do you need more of these? Because you've got to have for the front and the back of the papers. Okay, so you got to have extra. So when you cut that out, it looks like this. Okay, now you can do this a couple different ways. I think the die set originally was meant for you to take this paper, fold it in half, okay, like this, and probably wrap it around this and glue it down, which you absolutely can do that, okay? But what I have found is that if you're using paper like this, that's thick. Now, if you're using cheap, flimsy, thin paper, you're probably not going to have this issue. But if you're using high quality, thick paper, if you start layering it here, and then you put a layer on the inside here, okay, then it starts to really bulk up your paper and it starts to not bend very well. Remember how we talked about the bending? So if you're using thicker paper, it's going to be a little more difficult. The paper kind of tends to want to buckle a bit. I think you can probably still do it. I just find it easier to cut this down into some layering pieces. For me, that's just my preference. Okay, there may be other people who did it this way and it turned out perfectly fine. I haven't seen any other videos yet of the journal, but I'm sure they are coming because this is like the most fun die to work with. Okay, so stay tuned. I'm sure other people will have tips and tricks, but I'm going to show you how I did it and just what worked for me. Okay, so what I did, instead of gluing it down like this or wrapping it around like this, I took this pattern piece and I trimmed it with my paper trimmer. Okay, so I took my paper trimmer and what I did was I lined it up so that, I'm going to bring this close to the camera so you can see, so that it basically just cuts like a hair off. Oh my gosh, the handle is in the way. I'm sorry, you can't see. See how it just cuts off like right there at that corner? I mean, I didn't even measure this. I just eyeballed it. Like basically right at that corner where it starts to curve, that's where I trimmed. Okay, so I trimmed right there. So I just cut on this side, right? And that gave me one panel. And then I took what's left and I did the same thing. I flipped it and then I just lined it up so that it was right on that edge and cut. And then I am left with this little centerpiece, which I'm going to throw away. I'm not going to use that for anything unless you wanted to like use it as a strip or something, but we don't need it for this project. Okay, so I basically just cut the center off. And then I have these two pieces here. And what this lets me do is it lets me layer this on my album, and it's going to leave this white paper so that when I bind this together, I have a lot less papers to bind, and it's going to curve and bend easier. Okay, it's not going to be super stiff. So again, for me, this is what I did. This is what worked for me. Okay, so with that being said, let me set those aside. What I did when I started was I got all 4 of my papers and I opened them up and I laid them on top of each other. So they already folded in half, so I know where the fold is. And then I laid them on top like this. And you can adhere these or, you know, lock them together with a binder clip. That's probably not a bad idea, just to make sure that they stay in place. And then I use my stapler to staple them. Now, I said in my original video that you don't need a long arm stapler. What I did not realize is that my stapler is much wider opening than most staplers. So this one here is plenty wide. It's a swing line. I got this at Target years ago. It's like one of those really heavy duty metal ones. But I tried to do this with other staplers and they were too short. Like the opening was like only this long and it wasn't long enough here. So it depends on your stapler. Okay. It depends on if you have one of these that's super long. You need it to be, the opening to be 3 3/4 inches. Okay. So that you can staple. So mine is exactly that. So when I put this in here, I just line it up so that the little staple is going to be right on the seam. And mine happens to be just like that exact measurement. Actually, somehow this got off a little bit. Let me straighten this up. Okay. Oh, I dropped my thing. Hold on. So I'm going to line this up and I'm going to just staple it twice. Once. And again, I'm just sort of eyeballing, you know, roughly, I don't know, however much that is there, about maybe 3/4 of an inch of space over here. And I'm just going to push the stapler down. Is this out of staplers? Of course, this is out of staples. Hold on. Okay, never fails. Whenever you do a video, of course, things don't work properly. Okay, so I'm lining this up right where the staple is going to be on the seam. And I'm going to staple down through all 4 pieces of paper, right, just like this. Okay, and then see how the staple's right there on the seam, and then I'm going to move it over and roughly eyeball so that it is about the same distance. Again, I'm not measuring. I'm not a measuring person. Some things I will measure for, but if I can eyeball it, that's usually what I do. Okay, and I'm going to staple again. And it's stapled right on the seam. So you can see 2 staples right on the seam there. Now, if your stapler isn't big enough, you can try to get a bigger stapler. I do have a long arm stapler. You can get these on Amazon. They're not too terribly expensive. I bought it years ago when I was making like my own little journals and stuff. So, you know, this allows you to staple any length pretty much. But it is, you know, available online. They're called long arm staplers. So, if you don't want to staple it, you can stitch it. You can do lots of things to bind it together, but I decided to staple mine. All right, so then now that it's stapled, we're going to fold it back over, and now you have your little book that's ready to be embellished. Now, if you look, when you fold it, the edges are not going to be perfect over here. It's not going to line up super smooth. Don't freak out. Remember, you're going to be adding all of this super cute trim on the side. You're not even going to notice. You're not even going to be able to tell at all. And that's just typical for making a traveler's notebook like this. It just, the papers, when you fold them in half like that, they don't line up because the inside papers are scooched over further than the outside papers. It's just the way that it works. The only time it doesn't do that is if you're using like super thin copy paper, then you probably won't see that. But yeah, okay, so there we go. So there's our base. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these pieces and then start laying them out where I want them to go. Okay, so I have already cut a whole bunch of these. Remember, this is the stitched inside piece that I trimmed earlier. And I've cut a whole bunch of these so that they're ready to go. And then I'm going to start laying out on my book where I want them to be. But I'm not going to glue them down yet. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to think about, well, what cover do I want? Okay, remember, you're going to be embellishing the cover, so you don't want a pattern that's too busy, because if it gets real busy on there, you're not going to be able to see the cute embellishments that you put online, because it's all just going to like jumble together, or on the front, I'm sorry. And once I decide, okay, I'm going to use this paper, then I'm going to take a paper clip and paper clip it on there. And then I'm going to open it up, and I'm going to decide what paper I want to go here. And I'm going to just slide it under the paper clip so that I've got an idea of how my book is going to look. Okay, and then I'm going to pick a paper that I think coordinates with that pattern. And I usually try to go busy, you know, tone on tone, or more muted, right? So that it's not busy, because otherwise your eye doesn't know what to do. So I'm going to, again, grab another paper clip and put that here. Okay. And then so on, you just go through the book however you like. And I am lining up the ones, remember, so the curved, right, needs to go here, and the straight needs to go in the inside. And I am just going to do that for the whole book until I get the whole book laid out, kind of what I want it to be and what I want it to look like. Okay, and so I've got my whole book paper clipped. Now, typically I put the same paper on the front and the back so that it looks like it's kind of a cohesive pattern. Oh, wait, I missed one here. Let's see. Let's put this here. Okay, there we go. All right, so now I have all the papers that I need, and I've got them paper clipped on there. Okay, so now what I'm going to start doing is sort of pre-planning of what goes where. Okay, what kinds of things am I going to put in this book? And the reason I haven't glued this down yet is because I might need to do some stitching on the papers. I might need to pull this paper off, and like if I want a pocket, I need to be able to glue the pocket on and then trim around the side so that it's, you know, the exact looking pocket that I need it to be. If I'm gonna stitch some ephemera down, I need to be able to do that before I glue it to my paper. So that's why I paper clip it first, so that I can do all the stitching and the details before I actually glue anything down to the book. But this is so I know what papers are gonna go where. Okay. Okay, so I have another book here that I'm doing for Valentine's Day, and I've paper clipped everything, but I wanted to show you like the next step. So we're going to set this one aside, and then so that you can kind of see this one. Okay, so on the front, I like to do the paper tearing. So what I do is I take the cover off and I go ahead and glue my papers down. The way I do the paper tearing is I die cut the papers that I want, so that I still have the stitching all the way across, right? And then I tear the paper, and then I glue it on top of my paper, and then I tear it over here and I glue that on top. So the background is actually this heart piece, and then I've got this torn paper on top and this torn paper on top. But see, I want that stitching detail all the way around, so I cut the paper out first and then tear it and glue it down. And then I've already glued this sticker down. I'm going to stitch this with my sewing machine, but I like to glue it down first so it doesn't move. This is a sticker, but it is not very sticky. This is a really old collection, so you know, the sticky is kind of gone. And so then I can start, you know, pull this off, embellish it, stitch on it, whatever I want to do. And then when I'm done with it, then I will glue it to my book. Okay. And so here you can see I've pulled out this little piece of ephemera, because my plan is to take this and put this here and then stitch across the top so that this can be lifted up and things can be tucked underneath. So I've paper clipped this here because I know that when I'm ready to stitch, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to stitch that on there. Okay, over here, for this page, I'm going to stitch over here on this side. So I glued this down so it won't move. It's just glued on this one side, and now I have a tuck spot. I can tuck things in here, and if I want, I can stitch it. Now, what happens if you don't have a sewing machine, you don't want to stitch anything? You're good to go. That's fine. You can still create this book. You do not have to stitch. You can stitch by hand. You can just glue things down. You don't have to have stitching. It's still going to be adorable even if there's no stitching, I promise you. Okay, so there's that. And then for this one, I wanted a pocket. So again, I die cut this blue paper and then I tore it down the side, and then I only glued it right here and on the side and at the bottom so that now I have a pocket. And then again, I put this little sticker here. I went ahead and just glued it down so that it will stay. Again, the sticky kind of comes off. And then I already picked out this tag to tuck in here in the tuck spot, right? So that's that. Okay. And then for this book, I already glued these pieces down. And then here I created a pocket here. So let me show you how I did this one. So again, for this one, I just die cut this multicolor paper out with the die set, and then I trimmed it in half and glued this down. And why did I do that? So that it would still have this stitching all the way around the bottom down here. Okay, but I just put glue here, here, and here so that there's a pocket, and now I can tuck things in to the pocket like this. Little tags and things. And then I pulled this out because I think I'm going to put this on top of the pocket like that. So, but for right now, I just have it here so that it will, I'll remember that that goes there. So there's a lot of pre-planning that goes with the book because you don't want to glue anything down until you're ready to glue it down, until you've done all the things that need to be done before you attach it to the book. Okay. And then here, again, I did a side pocket. I already glued this piece of ephemera down. And then this little tag is sticking in there. And I've got this little piece here, which is only glued on the side, so you can tuck things in there. And then I have this little heart sticker from my stash, so I went ahead and glued it down. Okay, now I would recommend, it worked well for me to go ahead and staple the book before you start paper clipping your stuff. Okay. I didn't have the right stapler with me when I was doing this one, so I didn't staple the book yet, but I think it works better if you staple the book first and then start planning your pages and gluing them down. This is a small enough book. It's still going to fit in your sewing machine if you want to stitch on it. And you're not going to have a problem because it's not a large book, right? It's like a 3x5. So you should be good to go. Now let's talk about the trims real quick. Okay, so here you'll see that on each page I have like trims on here. Some of these have been stitched. So if you look here, I stitched this one on with pink thread. I don't know if you can see that there. It's been stitched on. So what I did was I went ahead and glued the book down, and then I just fed this through my sewing machine and stitched this down. But sometimes I did not. Sometimes I just hot glued it down. Like this particular piece of trim, I just hot glued this. And it worked great. And the reason is because I don't like the stitches on the back. So I like the top stitch, but I don't like the back stitching. So you'll see I stitched this and then I ended up putting a piece of paper over it to cover it up because I don't like the way it looks on the back with the stitches. I just don't think it looks clean, at least my sewing machine. I have a really old sewing machine. So the stitching on the front looks great, but the back stitching is a hot mess. So I always try to cover it up or use the hot glue when I can. I do like the look of the stitching, but like sometimes you don't need it. For instance, this ribbon is already stitched. This is pleated ribbon. It already has a stitching line, so I just hot glued this to the paper because it really didn't need my extra stitching line there. But like this one, I did stitch this down, and I stitched this before I glued this paper to the white. So that way you wouldn't see the back stitching on the other side here. So yeah, so it's just kind of pre-planning and thinking about what you want to do on each page. I would recommend that you go and look at other people who have made journals, their YouTube channels, and their Instagrams, and just kind of see what they do on each page to get some ideas of what kinds of things. Some people like for the pages to be blank so they can put pictures and words and journaling, and then other people like for them to be decorated and busy and cute. So it's just a personal preference. I try to do a combination of both because, you know, I'm usually gifting these or selling them. I sold a couple on my YouTube channel, and I don't know what the people are going to use them for, right? I don't know if they're going to use them for like an album or a journal, or if they just want to have it for inspiration and just look at it. Like I have bought a couple from other people and I just keep them. I'm not putting anything in them. I just want to have them in my stash because they're cute. So yeah, you can create like little pockets and put ephemera. You can put clothespins. Especially at Christmas time, there's lots of like gift tags you can add to your albums to fancy them up. I like to use combinations of pom-pom trim, and I do like to put these little tab things on here, which I think is cute. You can die cut those if you have a tab die or a punch, or sometimes they come with the collection, like this one came with the collection. You can use the journaling cards and stitch those on as tags and things like that. This is a gift tag from like Home Goods that I just stitched on. So yeah, lots of ideas. Now, one thing I will say is you do have to be careful about the bulk. You don't want to be using probably super thick 3D stickers on every page. Otherwise your book is going to be like wide open when you try to close it. You can see this one, I really didn't use hardly any 3D stuff, but because of the trim, it's already kind of bulky. So it just depends on how bulky you like your book to be. I did put the 3D sticker on the outside. So again, you can kind of decide if that's something you want to do. Now let's talk about when you go to glue everything down. Okay. I like to use liquid glue because I think it's more sturdy. Sometimes I use hot glue. It just kind of depends. I don't use tape because I find that tape doesn't last. Like over time, tape typically comes apart. All right. Now, for this book that I created here, I put this little paper strip down the center. You don't have to do this. I was trying to cover the staples, and it had this white seam down the back, which I was okay with on the inside, but I didn't really want it on the outside. So what I did was I die cut this stitched piece right here, right? And then I took my paper trimmer and I just cut like right here and right here. And so then I had a little strip of pattern paper and I folded it in half. Okay, that's this striped paper right here. I folded it in half and then I laid it on top of my book, and I only put glue on this side and no glue on the seam. And then I folded my book closed and I wrapped the paper around and then, you know, pushed it down on both sides. And again, the center part has no glue. The reason I did that is because when you open the book, that wants to move on you and you're going to get a little bit of a buckle, and that's okay. That's what the books do. If you glue that seam down, you're still going to get that buckle, but it's not going to move freely. And it's going to be kind of a pain. I know this from experience because I've done this before on albums. So I find that it works best to leave this part open, no glue, and just put the glue on the sides. And then you have room to open and close your book freely. And it's going to just work a lot better for you. Okay, so that's my experience. That's my tutorial. I hope it helps. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. And I cannot wait to see all of the cute little albums you guys are going to be making. I'm sure that once everybody gets their dies in hand, we're going to see all kinds of cute little journals being posted online. And I can't wait to see what you guys are making. Okay, I will talk to you later. All right, bye.